Hi! Kamusta na po kayong lahat dyan? Welcome po ulit sa Usapang Tito Manny. Ngayon po, meron akong babasahin sa inyo na isang article na nabasa ko na nanggaling sa Friends of PNP in USA. Pero bago po ako magpatuloy, kung bago po kayo sa channel ko, please hit on the subscribe button below, pati na po yung notification bell para kayo po ay updated sa mga videos na aking i-upload. Okay, ano po ba itong Friends of PNP in USA? Nakalagay po dito sa kanilang group. This group is created to provide mutual assistance and help friends of the Philippine National Police who are in the United States of America and Canada. Ang title po nitong post ay The Real EDSA and We Thought We Were Free. Ang nag-post po nito ay isang certain Dan Jimenez para nga po sa Friends of PNP in USA. Again, ito po babasahin ko at hindi ko po sinasabi sa inyo na paniwalaan nyo agad. As always, lagi ko pong sinasabi pag meron po akong sinishare sa inyo na nabasa ko sa internet, mag-research po kayo ng sarili nyo para po mapatunayan kung totoo nga itong aking nabasa. So I do not claim na ito ay totoo. Basta nabasa ko lang po and I find it interesting and I want to share it with you at kayo na po ang bahalang mag-decide kung tama nga or totoo itong na-post na to. Okay po ba tayo doon? So babasahin ko po siya, medyo mahaba pero please bear with me kasi very interesting po itong aking nabasa. Again, ang title po niya, The Real EDSA and We Thought We Were Free. On February 25, hours after President Ferdinand Marcos had been flown from Malacanang Palace in Manila to Clark Airfield, the following exchange occurred between a senior administration official and reporters on the issue of the Philippines. Senior administration official: It was a tightrope we had to walk. We had to follow a very careful path of our public statements and our private actions in order to achieve the stable outcome that we sought many months ago. I believe this is a classical example of a policy which set goals and then dealt with a series of evolving circumstances and in the end achieved what we set out to achieve. Tanong ng isang reporter, so you were trying to overthrow Marcos? Tanong ng pangalawang reporter, why can't we have that on the record? On August 16, 1985, Executive Intelligence Review exposed the plot of U.S. Ambassador Stephen Bosworth in collaboration with then Acting Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Fidel Ramos to carry out a military coup against President Marcos. Yung pong Executive Intelligence Review is an American weekly news magazine founded by Lyndon H. LaRouche Jr. in 1974. Lyndon LaRouche is an American economist and management consultant and has sought the office of President of the USA on 6 occasions between 1976 and 2000. So tuloy ko po. Although the press now claims that President Marcos stepped down on February 25 because of the overwhelming pressure of people power, the fact is that President Marcos was brought down by a military coup sponsored, directed, and aided at all points by the U.S. Embassy on approved orders of the U.S. State Department. It was not people's power that protected the military in the agonizing days of February 22 to 25. The opposite is reality. A U.S.-ordered coup provided the conditions under which people's power limited to the capital city of Manila was permitted to prevail. The coup was signaled when Corazon Aquino announced February 5 on ABC's Nightline that she would not abide by the election results unless she were the victor. Aquino claimed she would be unable to restrain her followers. So, teka muna ha, hinto ko muna sandali. So, doon sa interview ni Corazon Aquino sa Nightline, sinabi niya na hindi siya susunod sa election results kung hindi siya ang lalabas na nanalo. And she also claimed na baka hindi niya kayang i-restrain or pigilan yung kanyang mga followers. Tuloy ko. Now it is clear that Mrs. Aquino already had guarantees, if not from the White House, certainly from Washington. The coup began when Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile, fearing he was about to be arrested, seized the Defense Ministry at Camp Aguinaldo with 400 men. According to his own admission on Nightline on February 26, Enrile placed an immediate call to Ambassador Bosworth. EIR has now confirmed from 3 different reliable sources the contents of that discussion. Enrile was asked by the ambassador, "What do you need?" Enrile replied, "We need weapons." Those weapons were then supplied. On the afternoon of February 23, the decision was made at the National Security Council meeting attended by President Reagan that the United States would officially act to force President Marcos's resignation. This position was rammed through the meeting by Secretary of State George Shultz and Special Envoy Philip Habib, who knew of the coup plot before he left Manila. As a result of this meeting, the White House issued a statement written by Shultz and approved by President Reagan, telling Marcos to avoid an attack on Camp Crame, to which the coup forces had moved. The White House statement then threatened the United States provides military assistance to the Philippine Armed Forces. We cannot continue our existing military assistance if the government uses that aid against other elements of the Philippine military which enjoy substantial popular backing. This statement in the public record was an effective call to the Philippines military to join the coup forces unless they wanted to face the destruction of the military itself. Sana po nasusundan nyo yung binabasa ko. The Pentagon followed with a telephone call to every field commander in the armed forces of the Philippines, asking the officer if he would fight for Marcos. According to UPI, informed sources said they had been told by responsible Pentagon officials that all but one Philippine general had been persuaded by the Americans to keep his troops off the streets as the Marcos-Aquino confrontation escalated. State Department officials also reported on February 24 that they had a total profile of every field commander. Labor Minister Blas Ople, who had come to Washington to sound out possibilities for a coalition government, informed President Marcos by phone that Reagan believed Marcos should step down. Ople, in an interview with the Washington Post, reported Marcos as saying, "My life and the lives of my family are threatened right here. They have bombed the palace. They have forcibly taken over the radio station." Ople said that Marcos said it was a very curious situation in which he is being told not to defend himself by the United States. Political environment manipulated between August, when the coup plot first surfaced, and the final hours of February 25, the U.S. State Department, along with the media and members of Congress led by Senator Richard Lugar and Representative Stephen Solars, worked to create the political environment that would cover for the U.S. coup. The primary objective was not to bring in an Aquino government, but to break the Reagan commitment to Marcos. The first phase of the operation was a media campaign to convince the White House that the Philippines, if left to Marcos, would be lost to the communists. Bosworth's embassy supplied the reports to back up the media claims. The tactical objective was to force Marcos to prove his mandate by calling elections. The biggest fraud perpetrated in the elections was the creative perception that the NAMPREL heralded from Manila as our eyes and ears now, and which proclaimed Aquino the early victor, was ever an independent citizens watchdog committee. A creation of the CIA in the 1950s, NAMPREL received funds from the CIA throughout the election period. On February 26, NAMPREL Chairman Jose Concepcion, a member of the Board of Directors of the Benigno Aquino Foundation, was named Minister of Trade and Industry in the new Aquino government. If democracy had ever been an issue for the United States in the Philippines, Reagan's initial February 11 response of neutrality on the election results would have stuck. Mrs. Aquino would have been congratulated for a close race. Instead, by February 24, the State Department was actively studying the option of freezing all Filipino assets in the United States as if President Marcos were a state enemy. From the State Department's point of view, President Marcos's crime was that he was a nationalist leader who threatened to block the International Monetary Fund, ravaging the Filipino economy, and challenges the authority of the fund internationally. Ang source po nito, Executive Intelligence Review, March 7, 1986. So kung ating pong papaniwalaan itong article na to, hindi po people power ang nagpabagsak kay President Marcos at hindi po people power ang nag-upo kay Corazon Aquino bilang presidente. Ito po ay isang military coup perpetrated by the USA. At ito pala ay planado na months before nangyari yung People Power Revolution. So, noong August 16 pa lang, 1985, in-expose na po ng Executive Intelligence Review yung plot ni US Ambassador Stephen Bosworth in collaboration with then Acting Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Fidel Ramos to carry out a military coup against President Marcos. August 16, 1985 pa po. May plano na talaga to carry out a military coup. At ito po ay with collaboration of then Acting Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Fidel Ramos. Kaya naman pala, siya ang naging manok ni Corazon Aquino para tumakbo bilang presidente after po ng term ni Cory Aquino. At hanggang sa kahuli-hulihang hininga ni former President Fidel Ramos, wala po tayong narinig na pag-deny or pag-amin tungkol dito. Kasi kahit noong araw pa naman, naririnig na po natin itong military coup. Naririnig na po natin na ito po ay may basbas ng US. Isang napakalakas na bulong-bulungan na if I am not mistaken, ito ay ibinoking din ni Juan Ponce Enrile ngayon sa kanyang katandaan. Bakit po naglalabasan yung mga gantong article? Malamang kasi ito na talaga ang tamang pagkakataon. Wala po talagang lihim na hindi mabubunyag. Lalabas at lalabas po ang katotohanan. Well, again, hindi ko po sinasabi na ito po ay 100% na katotohanan. Nasa inyo pa rin po to do your own research. Ito po ay nabasa ko At umaayon naman itong nabasa ko doon sa mga naririnig natin mga bulong-bulungan tungkol sa totoong nangyari diyan sa February 25 EDSA People Power. Nasa sa inyo na po kung kayo ay maniniwala dito. Ano po sa tingin ninyo? Comment lang po down below and I will see you next time. Peace.